Storyville Gardens is the attraction of the park, I should say, coming here to the United States. It is, I mean, this is the first time that I've seen it, and it feels like a part of the experiences that I'm used to experiencing in major theme parks around the world. I don't know, Freddie, Mel, where do we start? Who do we talk to? What can you tell us?
We start with
this?
chills.
I got so many questions.
Well, I will just start by saying how thankful and humbled and honored, we are to join Delisa and her family in the kind of execution of this dream and really facilitating that, drawing it out of her, pulling from those childhood memories, I think it does for all of our design team members, including team members that have worked on $6 billion Universal Studios Beijing. We all feel like this unique opportunity to kind of pretend that we're like Herb Ryman or Harper Goff working in a closet with Walt Disney back in the 50s, because there's just so much sincere heart, soul, kind of divine inspiration in this. And it really it means so much. I mean, Delisa is an amazing developer, hugely respected in the region. She doesn't need to be doing this to make money. This is a heart passion project, and you can tell from her, and that passion has definitely spread amongst our team, and we're building an army to support this endeavor. But we are just like I said, so thrilled to be part of this journey.
And it's in Music City, it's said in the video.
If you don't know Nashville in Music City, USA, it is an amazing town. Definitely the coolest town in the New South. I've got so many friends that have moved there, that have relocated there from Southern California, from New York City, from around the world. I know my own daughter, when she did her first, post-college, kind of girls trip of all the cities in the country she could have gone to, they wanted to hang in Nashville. It's just a great place to be. Lots happening. And the thing about this one that's special to us too is Nashville had a wonderful regional park, called Opryland USA, that was well known, well loved. And it was around long enough to really influence at least a generation or two, and really make some solid memories. And I think, generally speaking, I haven't met very many executives that don't think it was kind of a wrong-headed move for the company that owned it to shut it down and turn it into a parking lot for an outlet mall. It just kind of was like a gut punch to the families in that city. And so it really, in our industry, we've known that Nashville is one of the few windows of opportunity, essentially holes, because the U.S. Theme park market is pretty mature, pretty built out. But Nashville has been a proven market. And if you consider what Nashville was in the early 70s when Opryland opened versus what the Nashville metro area is today, talk about night and day, the demographics, the growth, the health, the whatever. So we're pretty excited, pretty bullish. A lot of the investors are really excited and bullish about the potential of this wonderful seed of imagination.
Well, let's start from the beginning. I mean, obviously in the video, Delisa shares her childhood memories of her experience. How did that story of her and her childhood, explode into what now will be the four corners of the world?
Well, she grew up in Oakland going to Children's Fairyland, and her mom worked in the city, and that was the place that she would go to sort of
on the docks, iron worker. Her mom is a rock star.
Her mom is,
I think she's still working there. I mean, she's hardcore.
And that place, like for all of us, it doesn't matter if you grew up in Southern California or Orlando or wherever you grew up, you have this wonderful memory of a place that your parents would take you. We hope, you hope that you have just something that kind of rings true. And for her, Children's Fairyland did that. And it was wrapped around the idea of the fairy stories. That park itself was built in 1950, and I believe Walt Disney went there to benchmark Disneyland before 1955 to see, wait, how do they run it up here? And so this park, Storyville Gardens, has that same genetic code wrapped right through it, and Delisa and her family are the bridge for that.
And I could go down a whole historical tangent of the influence of that magical little park. You know, because it was actually very similar in scale to Walt's earliest conceptions of a Mickey Mouse park. And, you know, that really came out of, you know, his first attempts of doing like a Snow White, Seven Dwarfs Cottage, you know, at some of the movie premieres. It was just that right scale and seed of a park. It's actually similar in scale. And I think a connection for us in terms of Storyville Gardens was, you know, I grew up in Europe and Germany going to these, garden parks, you know, the original Tivoli Gardens, when Europa Park started as kind of a garden outdoor showroom for the Mack family that makes half the rides in the world. You know, I had a chance to be there, you know, close to opening year. Efteling Park, which is an amazing, beautiful park that's actually owned on a nature preserve by the Catholic Church. But the seat of that park was a similarly scaled little, they called it just a storybook forest. And the key to both Efteling and Children's Fairyland is they found these wonderful artists that were of their place and time. In Efteling, it was a kind of like Gustav Tengren. It was just a Dutch illustrator that did these beautiful watercolor renderings and storybooks, and he became their art director and stayed on for years. In the case of Children's Fairyland, they actually had this cool mid-century modern architect that got into this mid-century graphic style, and he really created the style that got copied kind of at least across the US, if not around the world. I mean, this style ended up traveling to Santa's Village, to other children, you know, storybook inspired. And in some ways, looking at it from today's lens, you look at it and you're like, kind of cheesy, gaudy, you know, very, very dated 50s, but it was a very specific mid-century kind of graphic style, which we've actually grown to love. You know, that Mary Blair, Ivan Durrell kind of you know, approach to
reflected in the little golden books, like all the little golden books. If you were to hold them up against one of these parks, you would see why they used that style.
So again, that was just a seed of inspiration. Though we're not trying to replicate that.
But even watching the video and watching, you know, sort of hearing Delisa's vision and how, you know, her childhood, like it instantly took me back to like my childhood and the, you know, the fairy tales, the nursery rhymes, everything that I remember from my childhood, and now sort of bring it to life. Obviously, you know, I think that the headline here is the importance of literacy as a driving force of this park. What can you tell us about how that came to be and how that will come to life and throughout the experience?
Well, a couple of early big ideas, you know, just when you think about the idea of empowering a young mind, you know, and a young spirit, and helping them to understand the power of words on a page, to create worlds, to give you know, Abraham Lincoln, you know, literally had one book on the family mantle, I think the Bible essentially, and to give him the foundation to do what he needed to do to change his country. I think the idea that words create worlds, that you could allow people to step into those stories and specifically find that inspiration, especially stories that have stood the test of time, you know, from the four corners of the world, and that throughout history, you know, there's more than just the current Hollywood IP, Disney, Pixar, you know, contemporary American or world culture version. Sometimes it's worth, I think, humbling ourselves, going back to the roots and the foundations of some of the earliest versions, even if they're stories that have still, you know, that are still being repackaged and reanimated today, to find the root, the heart. And quite often they look, taste, and feel very different from the Disney-fied version that is sold today in consumer culture. So we just, you know, it's just beautiful, the diversity, you know, that we.
I was gonna say, so tell us again, we have four corners. What are the four corners, and what stories are being told, as much as you can tell us about those four corners?
Well, I mean, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, it kind of actually sort of corresponds with the the four compass directions. You enter through a zone, sort of kind of a storyteller's lodge, essentially representing a little bit of an equatorial kind of Africa, Middle East. I mean, it's very much the idea of the cradle of not only civilization, humanity, and but you're getting into these African stories that the first visions of kind of personifying animals, for example. A lot of people don't realize that Aesop's fables, Aesop really came out of Ethiopia through Greece, and so kind of really digging into even a lot of Uncle Remus Harry Channel, people don't realize that those came out of African slave kind of commodified, commercialized, and and turned into Splash Mountain, which is about to get canceled. But anyways, again, that's part of the idea of reaching back into the heart of story when you're growing up and you're living and surrounded by these animals and creatures and nature. It's just so natural.
And that's where the story starts at Storyville Gardens. That's your entry. Your entry is through that cradle of humanity, that beginning, the first stories. Yes, that's how you enter.
And then to be able to emerge from there, and literally you can step east and enter into Asia, look across the water and see into Europe, represented by the Perrault's Palace, Charles Perrault, the French fairy tales, Grimm's Gardens, the German fairy tales, and kind of an English Maze Garden with the works of Lewis Carroll and C.S. Lewis and others. And then as you go west, of course, being able to go into the Americas, starting off with Native American legends and creation myths and tall tales, a Tall Tales Treehouse, and American legends, myth, and lore. And so again, it's stuff that so many people know and even love, but to still have that discovery of, hey, this is what you may not have known, or this is a diverse art styles, and so we're just thrilled to.
There's so much more to that, the story opportunities. I love one of our map concepts has, in a future phase, sort of grayed out on the edge. It's a picture of a jaguar temple, almost like you can see that we're going to go into South America next. The whole story just continues through, and you see these wonderful tales that some of them we know very well, some of them we don't know. And that's what Delisa wanted to do, is try to help people discover the stories that have made people who they are. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, what I love about this is, Mel, as you alluded to, is that we have, we grew up here with stories that are, originally started somewhere, and they've been sort of, adjusted and arranged in a way that worked for a full-length feature film. And what you have done is you said there are stories, not just that we are used to from the States or European stories, but stories from all four corners of the world. And some of those stories that maybe we've heard one version of, it started here, but if you go a little bit back farther, there's more to it. There's more behind it. And so it is not only a geographic celebration of diverse stories and voices from around the world, but it is also going back, in time in a way that's much deeper than maybe that we're used to.
Yeah, I think quite often, especially kids, it's easy to say, oh, people were really ignorant back then, or somehow we think that their IQ was lower than somehow IQ, just because we have more gadgets and toys, and you stare at a screen
way more sophisticated today.
16 hours a day does not make you a smarter bear than someone that had to survive on his wits, out in the elements. And so just there's a level of, I think, basic human respect and dignity, not just across geographies, but across cultures and across time, to say that, hey, there was some genius and beauty and artistry in some of these cultures and peoples that gave us some of these that have stood the test of time, that it's worth kind of digging into and exploring. The other thing about it, the tagline of stepping into story and song from the four corners, we're in Music City, USA. Yes. The level of, it's kind of like if you're in Hollywood and you want to cast the Hollywood Horror Nights, you got access to all these wannabe actors and stars, starlets. You're in Nashville, the access we're going to have to amazing musicians, up and coming stars, to amazing food and hospitality and culture. I mean, those are all things that we are definitely, this park is very much putting to the forefront. As you can tell, I mean, this isn't about trying to hit a, adrenaline junkie, hit list that you would catch at a typical regional park or even a Disney e-ticket marathon of running from one fast pass to the other. This is the exact opposite about it. I mean, this is about, let's sit on a rocking chair in that storyteller's lodge, read a story to, your grandchild, linger, get lost in these amazing gardens of discovery and delight, and discover details and nuances. And it's about slowing down rather than, hey, you better book that reservation and that dining thing and the fast pass 6 months in advance or you are screwed, man. It's the opposite of that type of experience. And again, a lot of it harkens back to, I think, the first time, I got to show this. One of my favorite Disney days on the planet was I adopted my youngest son from China. He was in an orphanage. He's deaf, and so he'd been in a special needs orphanage. I had a chance to take him to Hong Kong Disneyland before we flew home from Lantau Airport, and this was pretty early on. It hadn't really taken off. It felt to me like being at Disneyland in the 50s, and to experience it through his eyes, where he is just running around. I'm trying to keep up with him, climbing across the bridge at Tarzan's treehouse, taking that. I mean, it just was a sense of what this was like for people that had never even seen or heard about a theme park ever in their lives. And by far, that was one of the best days of my life for sure. And some of that magic is also what we're trying to recreate in this experience.
Yeah, and Mel, you made a great point, which is, I think when a lot of us, have first experienced parks in the past, it's like an Excel spreadsheet of roller coasters, and we're just run. And over time, the more that we all experience the parks, I think it's universal in the sentiment that a lot of us really enjoy just sitting and slowing down and being transported to a whole nother world where we step into a story, where we escape our everyday lives, our troubles, and we can just get lost in story. And so to your point, it's not like we're going to just jump from roller coaster to roller coaster. That's not what this is about. I think that is such a breath of fresh air for all of us who are huge parks fans, and we love this feeling of being transported to a whole other world, that we're going to do that not only into the stories that we're familiar with, but the stories that we're familiar with told in maybe more of an original way, but also be exposed and introduced to stories that we've never heard before.
Yeah, that's right. We love the idea that you're going to discover something in there that, you've heard of Aladdin and the 40 Thieves or Aladdin and his flying carpet, but perhaps we can hit on one of those Easter eggs that somebody's going to figure out once they finally read the book and say, wait a minute, that I've never heard of that. That's wonderful. Bringing that to life. There was a park up in Oregon, Enchanted Forest. I went there as a teenager, and they've got a Humpty Dumpty sitting on a wall. I get that. But right down the way, they had a rabbit hole that you could crawl into with Alice. And it got really small. And in my 16-year-old body, I could not get out. And I started to feel like I was going to hallucinate and be part of Wonderland forever. And that too, not the getting stuck part, but that too is part of this sort of touch, see, feel, and enjoy the stories that maybe you hadn't grown up with yet, but now you are. It's going to be amazing. And it's so funny. We're talking right now about a brand new theme park. When those kids in however many years it's before, we're not giving away when this is going to be built, but when those kids who, it's just not very far away that there's going to be a 3-year-old going through this place, it's going to be her home park. They will have never experienced a place better than that, and it will always resonate with them. That just blows me away that that's what is going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to note, I mean, I almost hesitate to even use the word theme park. on the one hand, I feel like we're being very true to the word, the idea that, when Walt opened Disneyland, that was the e-ticket. I'm stepping into fantasy. I'm stepping into tomorrow, into the frontier. It wasn't about, oh, I've got to do this ride and that ride and this, whatever. And I think the genre is almost devolved, especially with, what we call these regional theme parks that are really, truly probably more amusement
parks. Just give me the speed. That's
rides.
all I want.
Yeah, exactly. I want that adrenaline injection, like don't bother with the packaging. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just, there's elements of, children's gardens, of discovery centers, of museums, of living history park. I mean, it really, and again, a cultural and urban experience even, a lot of, us have been just jonesing for, to be able to get out and do some great sidewalk cafe dining with our best friends, and so that idea, again, and if you've never been to a Tivoli Gardens in Europe, you just need to understand how that's such a part of the fabric of the life of the city. I mean, it's not a thing where you save up and you go once every couple of years. You're there after work. I mean, and you're there with or without kids. It's some of the best food. It's the best beer and wine. You're there because it's just, and actually it's not that foreign for us here in Southern California, especially the recently deceased annual pass program. Those of us that had those annual passes, to actually almost feel a level, it got out of hand a little bit, but to almost feel a level of ownership, in the magic, where we almost treated like Disneyland, almost like, because I grew up in Europe and Germany, and we had that ability to just go downtown to be in these wonderful outdoor spaces. And that's really what Disneyland has always become, right, for Southern California, is that opportunity for just hang space. So I know for my wife and I, we'll go on a beautiful date night, walk around the river, have dinner. We may or may not go on a ride. That's, that's not the top of our list, but the way we use it is fundamentally different from, the way that, a roving band of teenagers going to use a Six Flags, or, a family hawking their home to go to Disney World is going to try to check Disney World off of that,
Well, that's the fun about this, and sort of the concept is that in the mornings, perhaps you're going to have the moms taking their preschoolers. It's going to transition into the afternoon when the bigger kids are out of school. They're going to start enjoying the space, and then in the evening, the live music comes out. The local bands are playing the music, the wine, the breweries are all setting up shop to make it an evening experience that people will never forget.
Yeah. It's a new genre, new species of theme park, as one of our friends talked about that rolled out Animal Kingdom. So.
What is the one piece of the park that each of you is most excited, that you can't wait to step into? And I'll start with you, Freddie.
Well, I love a water feature. I love the reflecting pool at Knott's, and the Rivers of America at the Disney parks. So the lagoon, the Seven Seas Lagoon, is that what we're calling it? The lagoon in the middle of this park that sort of points to all edges of the compass, and that you'll see reflecting Rapunzel's tower, reflecting the Tall Tales treehouse. To me, that's the stuff that's going to make the place, and open your eyes to what, family time, friend time, all of that. That draws me in. Of course, I do love a good maze, so we'll see how those come.
How about you, Mel? What are you most excited about experiencing on opening day?
Oh, there's so much, but again, one of my earliest theme park memories is flying out the window of the Darling House on the Peter Pan's flight. And I can't reveal too much, but I'm just going to say we're going to do an homage to, really what I consider my favorite attraction. I know a lot of Imagineers, if you polled them, would still say that magical little dark ride is still probably one of their favorite attractions. So I can't wait to kind of ride that blank object through.
If I can tag.
And for so many of us that live in either, the southeastern part of America, the deep South, Atlanta, Nashville, DC, Texas, like we're going to have something that we can experience. And also like Nashville, if our hometown is Nashville, That's going to be incredible to be able to experience like a brand new theme park that is of the caliber of experiences that we've only maybe experienced in Florida or in California at this point.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
really brings it home. And just to tag on your question, what we're looking forward to the most, I think Mel would reflect this as well, is just to see Delisa and her family and the hard work and the dreams coming true as they walk into their park and start to see the looks on the guests' faces as they reveal their dream come true.